So I figured we might as well get started. I don't know if that's even, I probably don't need that. Thank you guys for being here. This is a lot of people. This is sweet, especially for something I just threw together last night. You think I'm joking. I'm not. So my name, I'm Kyle Jones. I'm one of the owners of Jones Sport Fishing. My brother and I own the business. My wonderful wife, Danny, if you've ever called our office or anything, that is her. And then my kids are all running around. Henry, Sam, Kylie, and Moses as pretty much my production crew. If you guys have ever seen any of our videos, you've probably seen Henry and Sam on there numerous times. They like to get in and make cameos and all sorts of stuff, or especially in our Astoria videos, they'll be in the background looking about zombied out as I am, as we're trying to kind of process through everything. But this topic, I probably found out about this topic about the same time you guys did when that flyer came out. Rob kind of cornered me into doing a seminar, kind of shoving it in between. We've got basketball, and well, for one, I guide full time, run the back end of the website of our business, manage all of our social media accounts, and then a husband, and then my wife and I coach our boys' basketball team, and then my daughter's playing AAU tournament tomorrow, so it's wild. And then on top of that, I coach baseball at Kendrick High School, so there's a lot going on. So in December, when all this Expo stuff was getting put together, Rob was on my boat. We were filming it. Rob and Hillary, we were filming a TV show for Northwest Fishing TV. That's what it's called now, right?
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. Rob kind of pigeonholed me, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna do this." And I'd already told Toby no like 4 times, and I was like, "I don't have time to do anything." Rob's like, "Just do a seminar." I said, "All right, whatever." And as I was getting ready to run the boat, he's like, "Hey, why don't you do one on reed water?" And I don't think I really heard him. As I was starting to spool up the motor, I said, "Sure, whatever, Rob, that'll work." Well, fast forward to a week ago, we were in Mexico, and an email came out about all of the stuff going on, and I was doing reed water. So, sweet. So, really, this is a topic for me that comes up every day in my boat. It usually starts with somebody asking me how I learned the river, how I learned to do this or that, and probably one of the biggest advantages that I have is I've been a bank fisherman. I grew up rowing a drift boat. I grew up running a sled and a jet boat. I've fished and done things all over Idaho, and a lot of times it was just flying by the seat of my pants trying to figure it out. And through that, developing the skills, and I grew up in Boise, on the Boise River, fishing every single day that I didn't have practice. We could walk to the river and be trout fishing in like 5 minutes. And then it's funny, they would dump those steelhead in there, and my brother and I'd go out and catch most of them. It's like stealing candy from a little kid. But so reading water has always been a big thing. It's always been impressed upon me by my dad growing up, and I think it's becoming, through a lot of the conversations I have, it's not as well known or like well thought of a topic as I feel like it is. Just because it's one of those things, from my perspective, I just know how to do it. I know what I'm looking for, and I kind of take for granted all of the little things. So, with that said, I think a lot of times nowadays we've got so much technology, we've got so many reports online, we've got fish finders my live scope, I can watch fish swim around and then try to catch them. But I think one of the things that we're losing is our ability to take a fresh picture and a look at water and factor in what the fish are that we're trying to catch and how we're going to go about catching them. And I think we all probably get better as fishermen if we would turn off all the crap on our screens, turn everything off, and just go fishing. I think we would learn more than we ever thought we would ever need to, and the simplicity of just going fishing without having to stare at a screen is incredible. When I'm steelhead fishing on the Clearwater, there's a lot of times I turn that thing off. I don't even want to look at it. I had the in college, I had the drift boat when I was at U of I, and I learned to fish 80 miles in Clearwater from Kuski to Lewiston in a drift boat. You know, you got one shot, and if you didn't set everything up right, you might not get to fish it again until a week and a half, and you remembered that you should have been 3 feet over, and you missed it because you were this way too far. So the beauty of that and understanding the river from that perspective, I think, is something that I'm going to try to pass on. And I think the biggest thing and the message that I want to give is encourage you guys to get out and learn the hard way. And sometimes that means smashing a pump shoe, but I still smash pump shoes all the time. But so just get out, learn, and attack the water, and try to figure out what you're doing that way. And I think the biggest thing on this slideshow is that hopefully we can. So these are all, every one of these pictures, they're all Adobe stock photos that I pulled last night of, you know, different river scenes, and I think they kind of represent a lot of the stuff in the steelhead world that we see, and some stuff that'll be kind of subtle that I want to go over. And then if anybody has any questions, anything like that, if this goes over your head, please let me know, and I'd love to dive in deeper on whatever one of those things is. Or if you think I'm completely full of crap, maybe don't tell me that right now, you can tell me that in private. But yeah, so this photo, so I'm gonna come at this with a perspective of that I've never been in either of these scenarios ever before, and I'm fishing for steelhead. We can even talk about it, the difference. See, there's just a lot. We've got water temperature, we've got what kind of stage the fish are in, where they are, what part of the river, different runs. But we'll just take it from the kind of like a blanket approach, where we're going to try to find steelhead in these different scenarios that we're looking at, and kind of take it from there. There will be kind of a theme. A lot of these are smaller river situations that like we deal with on the Clearwater or the Snake, but I think that's really valuable because that's the place where we learn what it actually looks like, and then you take what you learn and what you can read on a smaller body of water, and then apply that out to a larger body of water like the Clearwater. Sometimes if we just try to jump straight into a place like the Clearwater, we look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? Well, it's simply just, if you can take a smaller river scenario and where you feel like those fish are going to be on a smaller river and apply that to the big river, you're going to find those fish in roughly the same kind of places. Might be bigger, deeper, wider, but they're going to sort of look the same. So this photo here, beautiful piece of water. If I was going to say I was probably throwing a bobber jig, I've never seen this before. I walked up on it and I'm like, holy crap, look at this. There's fish here, I know it. You know, the first thing I'm going to notice here is that there's these big boulders here, and we've got something, so there's structure here in these boulders. And then it's going to be one of the things that we're going to notice most of the time is like from a steelhead perspective, and really almost all fish for that matter, structure is key. And the difference between trout and steelhead is the number one thing that a steelhead's looking for is security, right? Where a trout, they're going to look at the best place that they can feed. So steelhead and trout, pretty much same thing, different parts of their life cycle. But the steelhead, its number one job is to get back up the river safely to spawn. And so it's going to look for security, and then it's also going to look for a way that it can be hidden. So with those kind of things first, I mean, you're going to look at this, you would notice that you've got these big boulders here, boulder with water, you know, everything's fast. So, you know, I mean, the first place I'm probably throwing, and I'm walking up here and I'm hitting right here. I'm throwing right in behind that seam. I'm going to let a float run all the way down there, down into those shadows, and the next thing I'm going to notice is those shadows, and then as it dumps into that bigger river, it looks like everything slows up. So, and the way you can kind of tell that is because you see everything, all the boils and everything going on here, and as this starts to get down in toward that deeper part of the river, everything starts to kind of flatten out. You can see some riffly stuff in there, which means there's probably some more big rocks that are under the water in that little bit of deeper spot. But the deeper part of that hole is probably kind of off of that dead tree and straight back out in behind that mid-river boulder. So I come in here and I'd start here, hit here, and then I'd probably come off the shallow side, if I was standing up there, I'd hit everything with my feet, work my way out, fish that deeper stuff. I'd work that, and then I would definitely finish by fishing everything in the shade. And then every little pocket in between. But I think that's, if you're just kind of starting to look at something, you can be able to look at it from where the fish are going to be, and yeah. So, you want to go ahead? Let's go to the next one. Literally pulled these out last night, so ooh, that was sweet. That looks a lot more like something we'd see on the salmon river, or even in the canyon on the snake. So one thing that you can tell here right off the bat is you've got this really, like this oily, high volume flow, swirly stuff. That's telling you this, most everything in here is really, really deep. And so there might be fish there, but honestly, I probably wouldn't even waste my time. I'd be down here to this tail out section. So the tail out, so in a hole, when you look at it, so usually you've got the riffle of the lead in, you've got the run, and then you've got kind of the mid-body section of the hole, and then as the hole starts to run, come up to go over the break, you've got the tail out. And so steelhead are notorious for sitting in the tail out, or especially the start of the tail out, because while this might be really fast and deep and kind of pushy and doing a bunch of different stuff, you get into this part here, and suddenly that bottom starts to come up, and there's going to be a sweet spot in there where that current, where those fish are laying here on the, as the current starts to push against and come up against the rise of the bank, you're going to have a spot where those fish can just sit. And they can sit in there, they're comfortable, they're not even hardly have to move. That water on the bottom isn't even hardly moving yet. And then it's also the sweet spot where they're able, after they came up through that little choppy water, they can settle in there and rest. So that, in a big, and so like on the snake and the clear water, a lot of the stuff that, especially the snake, like if you're up in the canyon, you'll see a lot of the guide boats and stuff, or a lot of the guys, they'll be pulling diver bait or plugs in those tail outs. And that's what they're looking for. It's those fish came up out of that rapid, settled in to that water, that lead in, and they're just resting there. Later on though, but I wouldn't kind of get away from this though, because if the water was cold, so when steelhead are moving, when the water's warm, so when I say water's warm, I'm saying like 60 to 48 degrees from our perspective up here. When I say cold, I'm talking like mid-30s. Like right now, January, on the clear water, fish are laying in colder, deep stuff. They're going to be in these real slow edges here. They'll probably still be in the tail out, but like this right here, this nice outside bend, that might not be all that deep, but there's a couple of big boulders in there, and there's probably fish laying in there. So when the water's cold, I'm looking at fish on the outside of the main flow. It might only be 3 or 4 feet deep sometimes. Some of that stuff is really slow, really shallow, but those fish are in there, they're just conserving energy and not wanting to go. I'm going to go ahead and click to the next one. Oh gosh, I want to fish all this stuff. This spot, man, holy crap, there's like not a place that there wouldn't be a fish living. So again, and I think this is one of the things that I think Rob, Hillary, and I were talking about when this topic came up was, I think Rob said, hey Kyle, why are you fishing here? Why is there fish here? And I think I pointed out, I was like, well, as you look down into here where this run necks down, you see how that water's boiling and then it goes flat. So a lot of times when you have that surface disturbance, what that's telling you is underneath you've got some big rocks. The current had come together, it fell over some big rocks or something, and it's showing you, even though it might be ever so slightly on the surface, that there's something underneath there, and that structure probably has fish related to it. If I was pulling plugs in a drift boat, these two rocks that are midway down where it's probably super slow, barely enough current to get my plugs to work, I bet I couldn't even get my power boat in there, but in a drift boat, I can pick fish off of those rocks. So you're looking constantly for what's different in the hole and where a fish might want to spend to be secure and rest. And yeah, that's a pretty sweet place. Yeah, go ahead and skip again. Another beautiful spot. This What would be really funny is if somebody recognized these photos, because this could easily be somewhere on like Kelly Creek or Lord Ford or something like that. But here's kind of a cool spot. So approaching this hole, this would be an easy something you'd be looking at. You're walking downstream, or you're in a drift boat coming downstream. And first thing I'm going to notice here is we've got this shallow rock bar, and then we've got deep green water along that upper part of that bank. And then it's followed by this big, deep swirl in here. And you can tell that that's deep and starting to eddy because the current here is pushing off the side. And then you've got a little bit of broken water on top of some glassy stuff sort of causing a back end there. And so I'm gonna immediately fish all of that stuff where it comes off of that shallow where I can see easily. And then as soon as where I can't hardly see, that's the first place I'm gonna fish. And then I would work that whole thing down. I'd get it down in there, and then once I wasn't able to fish real well and that swirly stuff, I'd probably don't. But yeah, beautiful. Go ahead and skip it. This is a cool piece of water. This is something that you might see. I don't know if you were. Probably if you were on the South Fork, you know, in between like up toward like Dewey Mine. Something like that, you'd be in there and in that canyony water, and you're really just kind of looking for where fish are going to pocket out. The first thing that I would notice here is you've got a ton of flow kind of coming out around this corner, but you've got this sweet little slip. Right in there, I definitely fished that. And then one place I wouldn't overlook is this other little side over here where you've got extra flow. Something might have pulled out. And this would be the tail. This would be part of the tail out of here, even though this is a real bouldery and drop kind of pool. We've got this tail out here, and you definitely fish in here. Get this mid-river rock that's probably fish laying in front of it and behind it and off to the side. And then moving up, you've just got a series of these step pools. So that's kind of thing we see in a lot of our upper stuff up the river. And I encourage you guys to, go fish. You know, I think sometimes it gets like it feels late in the year when it's, March and the fish have been in the river for a long time. But we've got some really cool, accessible, smaller water that whether you want to keep those fish or not, or whatever you want to do up there, it's fun, and it's going to teach you a lot of things that you're going to learn to be a better fisherman by losing a bunch of gear and having fish in places where you don't feel comfortable. It just does. I guarantee you, a guy that can come in here and drift fish this nastiness is going to go side drift on the lower part of the Clearwater and just think he's in gravy train all day long, never breaking anything off. All right, go ahead. So this picture I remember seeing last night. This is when I looked at the caption. This is actually, I think, in Scotland somewhere. But this is kind of what a lot of the lower Clearwater looks like. It's broad, it's flat, it's not really showing anything. You don't have those steps and those pools and that stuff, so you're kind of looking at it. You're like, well, where in the heck would I fish? Where would I start? And so the first thing that I kind of notice is all of these rocks and all this turbulence in here near the bank. So you've got these rocks here that it starts to flatten out a little bit. You've probably got some holding water that's running right down through on this inside part. Looks like you've got the spay guy. What they do in Scotland, I don't know, both times they don't even wade. You see they like mow this down so royalty can walk along the bank. They don't even have to get wet to cast. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. And I've never seen it, I've just seen a video of it, it's wild. You got a guy standing up here in boots, jacking it halfway across the river. But yeah, on the Clearwater, that's probably only 4 or 5 feet deep, maybe. If that was the Clearwater, it'd be 3.5 to maybe 5 feet deep, but that's where those fish should be there because they're a little bit out of the main flow. It could also you've got a ton of water coming here, depending on how fast that is, they might be laying out in there. And then obviously you've got structure in the bridge, which I know our bridges around here with the main flow, you're not really fishing in and around very many of them, but just because we've got such peaks in water, they're wash pools and stuff behind us. The bridges are not really, for one, they're not a very safe place to be with the boat, and two, they're not very fishy. But this looks just gorgeous too. Another really cool piece of water. So this to me, and that's one of the fun things, like guiding. I've been guiding full time for almost 20 years now. So I don't get the chance to fish in very many places that I don't guide in, and that's the, if there is a downside to fishing every day, it's that you're fishing the same places every day. So that'll be my one little gripe. But because the clear water is a place that you would ever get bored of, right? But yeah, so this way, to me, like when I'm driving along the highway and my wife will yell at me half the time, what are you looking at? I mean, I'm looking at every body of water. Sometimes I'm just salivating over looking at it. I know I could catch a fish right there. I know I could. And this is one of those pieces. If this was a bridge, I would probably have to stop and look at the water and figure out I'd be one lane. There'd be somebody else coming the other way, and I'd be stopped on it. But in here, I would start where this bush is. Coming in here, all of this on this inside would definitely start in here. That's one of the things. I know that a lot of the fly guys that they talk, and I've done a ton of swinging flies for steelhead and fly fishing, is never overlook the water that's really close to you. So any of this stuff in here, right? Your main objective might be to fish this, but why wouldn't on the way here you try to pick a fish out of here? Shoot, we go out and catch a couple of steelhead in a day, you've had a great day. So if you fish 10 of these spots, you catch a big fish out of one of them, and that adds to your 2 fish that you caught that day, man, you're doing fantastic. So try not to overlook stuff that might be kind of marginal, but it's close, and you can fish it. I know it's hard, especially like on the clear water where we've got these big long runs, and we're trying to set our boats up to back troll, and you get into something, and you might burn 45 minutes of your day. You just got away from your daughter's basketball game, and you're trying to fish as hard, as fast, and get as many spots as you can. But I will tell you that there's a lot of times, especially when the river's busy, like weekends, earlier in the fall, that there's a lot of fish that myself and the guys that work with me get caught out of little teeny spots that aren't the main runs. We see everybody hitting the main spots all the time, and one of the things we do, it's like, well, how, especially when it's a bunch of the local guys that are around, because most of you guys, you guys can fish. And so when we're trying to fish in and around and trying to figure out where people have hit, like all the main spots to hit, especially midday. And so these little spots, something you floated over and you're like, dude, it's actually deeper right there. Those little spots you can hit, the more of those little spots you can hit, the more fish you can catch. But yeah, starting in here, I fish that. I mean, I'd work all the way out to that fast water. I'd probably, if I was spring fishing on a little salmon, I'd definitely be fishing all that. But that's all there is to fish, so. Go ahead and click on it. Another sweet little piece of water. This might even be an AI generated photo, but the computer thought this was the most beautiful looking piece of water. But same thing, you've got the rocks in front that start to kind of create the hole, and you'll see a theme here, and I think is kind of important. The easiest place to be able to read the river is from bottom up. If you're trying to read it coming downriver, that's the toughest angle you're ever going to have. So if you can work your way up a river and kind of pick this stuff out where you can sit below it and get a really good feel for how everything moves, that's the best angle you're going to get. I know that's not always possible, but like in a spot like this, you've got this little boulder, this little flat spots in here. I'm always looking, when I'm fishing in and around those boulders and stuff like that, especially for steelhead, trout would be land like right there because there's a sweet spot to catch food, or they'd be right in front of that rock. And the steelhead might be right in front of that rock too, but I think they'd actually be more likely to be right here, wherever that smooth spot is where they're not having to work real hard to be in there. And there's multiple of those spots. So if I was walking up this river and I had a bobber and jig in my hand, I would pick those spots. Boom, 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 and just kind of keep moving on there. This is another cool. This is obviously the water's really low here, but it's kind of bringing that same theme to hand. You're just looking up the river, you're looking for turbulence, and then a flat spot, right? Or coming off of that as it flattened out. In this scenario, depth with something that's really, really low, looking for the little deep pockets, then, you know, something most of it might be shin deep, and then suddenly it's thigh deep. Well, that's part of the hole. So one of the things, it's funny, growing up in Boise, when they would stock the steelhead in Boise River, my brother and I, it was always the lowest time, the lowest flow of the year. It was always around Thanksgiving. And as you can imagine, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every Googan dude in the Boise Valley that wants to go steelhead fishing shows up. And most of them would walk straight out into the deepest spot in the run, and they'd be casting over here. All the time. But we'd walk up, and there'd be fish, like, right behind them. I'll never forget catching fish behind guys that were weighted out in waders and having fish splashing on the back of them. I turned around, what are you doing? I'm catching fish. You walked past them. It was deeper where you walk through than where you're fishing. So always kind of have that kind of stuff in mind. Go ahead. Click off through there. Another beautiful piece here. So here, this is another one of the spots you can tell that there's a lot of current and some definite structure just by the way that the river's boiling and moving. Anytime you see that, there's something going on the bottom that's causing turbulence, whether it's the current falling over or boulders. It's probably against that far bank. There might even be wood in there that's coming off of a boulder up there at the top. So that's one of those things that I'm always looking for. Is that it? All right. So I know we just looked at a bunch of random river pictures, and I tried to like put into context something that's taken me a lifetime of doing this to kind of feel like, you know, I have a little bit of a handle on it. But I think one of the things that I want to stress is steelhead fishing wise, and really just rivers in general, especially steelhead. I tell guys this all the time. Is, you know, you'll hear of like a hard and fast rule. Like somebody will say, oh, they're always over here, or they're always over there, or that spot's too shallow, or that's not good down there. There are absolutely no absolutes. That's the only thing that you can guarantee, is that you will find a fish. I can't tell you how many times I've been pulling into a run. I got 5 or 6 guys ready to cast, and I don't even think they're ready yet. And somebody jacks a cast out way early, and I go, oh, not yet, not yet. And they go, wham, fish on. And I'm like, oh, okay. Sweet, yeah, that's right where I wanted it. Or you tell everybody to reel in, and as we're still drifting down, you know, there's always one guy that never reels his stuff in when you tell them to. They're just drifting along half time. It's usually an older gentleman that didn't hear you. Because I mumble, and somebody will be, you know, you're like, hey, reel him up! And there's one guy that's, you're like, hey, reel it in. Oh, I got a fish! Yeah, sweet! Right where I wanted it. So, every rule is meant to be broken. So, I would just encourage you guys to fish more, quit worrying about so many of the little particulars, and spend more time with your electronics off and try and see if you can figure things out that way. And I think you'll end up being better because of it. So that's my little spiel. So if anybody has any questions.
So quick on the second one.
Go ahead.
We're stuffing fishing in that tail up, right?
Yeah.
With more for running and bank fishing.
Absolutely.
You thinking casting out over the palm into the boiling,
Yeah.
reel into the palm, or maybe more on the other side, casting to the palm, reel into the boiling?
Either one.
Either one.
Either one, but I can see what you're talking about. It just depends on what would get you the better grip.
Yeah.
So you know how like there's times where, you know, you've got a pocket of slack water in front of you,
right,
and no matter what you do, you like, even if where your gear's landing, you feel like it should fish, but it ends up just kind of dragging into that. You know, so you've got that scenario. I would just try to figure out exactly how to get the drift that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Yeah, like you're probably talking about like trying to fish out in here from over here.
Well, I'm thinking
Standing
like, you know,
on
like on
the
that far right
Yeah.
beach or that far left
Yep.
beach, like, or if I'm like looking at this picture, right, like from right there, now like I know I can get on either side of the bank.
Yeah.
Which would be the best side of the bank to cast over into.
Whichever one, yeah.
And
We'll try both.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think about a certain spot on the North Fork that looks like that?
No?
Because there is one. Fished in a long time. Who else? Somebody?
Inside corner versus outside corner, I mean, do you have a preference that you, or is it just really the spot?
So the question, inside corner versus outside corner, I think it really depends on the individual spot and how much flow is on that outside corner and what it is. Because sometimes those outside corners, you know, are the current's just ripping and you almost can't fish it. But there are some that you've got this big slower bend where you've got slack water on the inside, and then that's where the current is on that outside, and you end up in a better spot there. But it's really, you just gotta get set up in there and try to see what's gonna fish. And that's the hard part, is like, there's so many things where I think the answer is we just have to fish, you know? I always joke around, when I used to fish the Hanford Reach a ton, you know, we downhill trolled it, and I always felt like every single hole had a minimum of $100 learning curve. Because you're pulling pro trolls and a super bait, and you've got 6 rods out, and you drop into a hole, and then holy crap, there's a rock all of a sudden. You get one whole side of the boat hung up on it. You lose $75 in flashers, you know, in 10 minutes. So, you know, but you know where that rock is now.
What about bobber fishing that versus plucking or something? I mean,
So if I was I'd be bobber fishing that for sure. If I'm springer fishing it though, I'd be plunking it for sure. No, yeah, yep. And that's the other thing, you know, like springers versus steelhead, they're gonna hang in different places. So like a spring chinook, its number one thing is safety and then ease of travel. So like when that water's high, they're on it. I mean, they're in the bushes. There's times where I've seen them roll in the willows. You got the boat set up as close as you can. You can't even get any further into the bank, and they're rolling in the trees. It's like, how do you get them out of there? So, yeah. Anybody else? Other questions? No other questions? Just blank stares.
Tell us where the fish are.
In the water. That's a problem I gotta figure out every day too. Yeah. I got the boat in the morning and I go, man, God, please let me actually catch some fish today.
Man, oh man.
Danny knows. I ask for fish dances quite often. There are a lot of days where even though I spend over 100 days a year on the water, where I feel like I suck and I don't even know what direction I'm going. So it is totally normal to just be like, what? Why can't I do this? Because I feel like that all the time. Might be lack of sleep.
Hey, I've been on your boat when we caught fish, and I've been on your boat when we caught
Yep. It all happens. And if anybody tells you it doesn't, they're completely lying. Anyway, so I appreciate you guys. Thank you for sticking with me and kind of rolling through this. This was an attempt to do something that was a little bit different than I normally do, and so I appreciate you guys sitting through and listening. And hopefully everybody picks something up from it. Thank you.